While Van Omen had been a just recipient of the magical gift of music, unworthy souls were sometimes granted it too. A story was told in the mountains of Wales of an old cottager named Morgan, who received an instrument from the fairies. One night, as Morgan nodded drowsily by his hearth, a knock on his door roused him. As he shouted welcome, 3 road-weary strangers entered the dwelling and asked for food. The greybeard, warmed by his fire, his pipe, and his good ale, waved them toward the bread and cheese laid out on the table. The travelers took what they needed, promising in return to grant any wish that Morgan had. He laughed at their nonsense and asked for a harp that would sing even for his stiff, clumsy fingers. Instantly the strangers vanished. In their place stood a beautiful harp, so delicately wrought that only the smallest hands could have made it. Morgan recognized it as a fairy's instrument, just as, too late, he began to realize his visitors had been fairies in human guise. He stared at the harp for a long while, wishing he had asked for something better. When he heard his wife and some friends outside the door, he decided to make them laugh with his poor playing. As they came in, he plucked the strings. Melody flowed from the harp in a stream of notes swifter and more complex than any Morgan had played. His wife's toes began tapping to its rhythm, while her friends started to sway. Soon they were turning and bobbing and then whirling and leaping to the music. Yet there was no joy in their faces, only fear and confusion. They begged Morgan to stop playing, and when he did, they staggered to an exhausted halt. With a mischief that soon turned to cruelty, Morgan found he could make invalids leap from their beds and cripples dance in agony to the harp's music. He caused his enemies to dance until the bones of their legs snapped. When the fairies saw how wickedly Morgan was using their gift, they took the harp away one night while he slept. They had not fashioned the instrument for evil, and were appalled to see how easily its potent magic could be harnessed to malice. Another instrument that could be bent to wicked ends was the violin, whose notes insinuated themselves into the listener's being. Gypsy tale spinners explained that its dangerous seductiveness stemmed from its origins. The first violin had been made by the devil himself. According to the gypsy legends, when a Hungarian peasant girl named Marika fell in love with a handsome and well-born huntsman who rode past her family's cottage each day, she called to the devil for help. He appeared before her that night, ready to grant any request if the girl could pay his price. He could give her the huntsman's love if she would but give her 4 younger brothers into his infernal keeping. As the girl went from bed to bed in the cottage, gazing down at the sleeping figures, the devil followed her. He looked at the boys greedily, but the girl's expression was distant, fixed on the beautiful huntsman in her mind's eye. She nodded to the devil, who instantly transformed the boys into 4 lengths of string. Next he must have their father, her benefactor said. After only the briefest pause, the girl agreed and watched as he changed the old man into a box that stretched from a rounded body to an elegant neck. He fastened the strings across it and plucked them with his clawed fingers. At their twanging sound, the devil looked pained and turned to the girl again. He asked for her mother. Almost feeling the huntsman's embrace now, Marika gestured to where the last of her family slept. From the old woman, the devil fashioned a slender stick of wood strung on one side with a twist of her hair. At last, the devil drew the bow across the strings of the violin. Marika listened with wonder to the music that trembled in the air like a human voice. In its song, she seemed to hear her brother's laughter, her mother's scolding, and her father's prayers. As she began to weep, the devil struck up a merry tune that transformed her mood to joy. Then he gave it to her, saying that its music would ensnare the huntsman's heart. She played the violin in the forest the next day. As the huntsman rode by, he heard its haunting voice, heard in it all he had ever loved or dreamed of loving, galloped swiftly through the trees, joyously lifting the girl to his saddle, and turned his horse towards home. After only a few days, the devil came looking for them. They had listened to his music and were his creatures now, he said, sweeping them away to hell. As Marika vanished in the infernal darkness, the violin slipped from her grasp and fell to the forest floor. There it lay with silent strings, until a gypsy boy found it among the leaves. Marveling at its lovely design, he plucked at it and tapped it with the bow. When at last he discovered how to draw the bow across the strings, he made a music which gypsies played ever afterwards to make men laugh or weep.